Hello everyone, I am here with the second part of Funaria, and today we will discuss about its reproduction and life cycle in detail. So let's start. Firstly, reproduction in Funaria. So Funaria reproduces both vegetatively, that is asexually, as well as sexually. Mainly asexual reproduction include vegetative reproduction, और वेजिटेटिव रिप्रोडक्शन में हम पढ़ेंगे आज रिप्रोडक्शन विद द हेल्प ऑफ प्रोटोनीमा, that is primary protonema, secondary protonema. Then there are some structures like gamete, tubers, and other method of vegetative propagation is APOSPORY. So firstly, vegetative reproduction. Under this we will discuss various methods of vegetative propagation. So firstly, it takes place by following methods, and the first one is by primary protonema. So primary protonema is formed as a result of germination of meiospores or haploid spores which are produced inside the sporogonium. जो स्पोर बनता है दैट इज़ हैप्लॉइड, और उसकी जर्मिनेशन से बनता है प्राइमरी फिलामेंटस स्ट्रक्चर, इसको बोलते हैं प्राइमरी प्रोटोनिमा. और इस प्रोटोनिमा में दो तरह की ब्रांचेज होती हैं. कुछ ब्रांचेज सॉइल के सबस्ट्रेटम के ऊपर ग्रो करती हैं, दे आर ग्रीन इन कलर, और उनको कहा जाता है क्लोरोनिमा, जो हमने लास्ट लेक्चर में पढ़ा था. देन देयर आर सम ब्रांचेज विच पेनिट्रेट्स इन द सबस्ट्रेटम, और उन ब्रांचेज को कहा जाता है राइजोइडल ब्रांचेज. सो ये जो प्रोटोनिमल ब्रांचेज हैं, बाय देयर फ्रेगमेंटेशन और ब्रेकडाउन दे कैन गिव राइज टू न्यू gametophytic plant body of Funaria. So by multiplication of primary protonema, death and decay of cells and breaks off this protonema into a single cell or many celled fragments, and these fragments can grow into the new protonema which bear buds. So ये जो fragments बनते हैं इसके breakdown से, death और decay से, so ये जो fragments है they can grow into the primary protonema, and they also bear some bud-like structure like this one. And each bud has capacity to develop into a leafy gametophore, that is the main plant body gametophyte of Funaria. Next, biosecondary protonema. So when protonema is developed by other than the germination of spore, other method, that is other than the germination of spore, then that protonema is known as secondary protonema. So जो स्पोर की जर्मिनेशन के अलावा किसी और मेथड से बनता है प्रोटोनिमा, उसको कहा जाता है सेकेंडरी प्रोटोनिमा. So it may be developed from any detached living part of the gametophyte such as stem, leaves, Antheridium, Archegonium, paraphysis, sterile cells of capsule, Seta, or when the rhizoids are exposed to sunlight in moist atmosphere. So ये जो plant body के parts हैं, अगर इनमें से किसी भी डिटैच्ड पार्ट से, लिविंग पार्ट से अगर प्रोटोनिमा बनता है, सो उस तरह के प्रोटोनिमा को सेकेंडरी प्रोटोनिमा कहा जाता है. एंड इट इज सिमिलर टू प्राइमरी प्रोटोनिमा, सिमिलर होता है प्राइमरी प्रोटोनिमा की तरह. एंड इट डेवलप्स इनटू द लीफी गैमेटोफोर, जो मेच्योर गैमेटोफाइट है उसमें ये डेवलप होता है. सो दिस इज द रिप्रोडक्शन बाय सेकेंडरी प्रोटोनिमा. नेक्स्ट बाय गैमे. कुछ एक जो क्लोरोनिमल ब्रांचेस होती हैं दे डिवाइड और वो बनाती हैं मैनी सेल्ड स्ट्रक्चर्स, एंड दीज सेल्स बिहेव एज गैमे. So the terminal cells of protonemal branches divides by transverse longitudinal division, जैसा कि हमने प्रीवियस पिक्चर में देखा था, and form green multicellular bodies of 10 to 30 cells. और green multicellular bodies बनती है 10 to 30 cells. इन स्ट्रक्चर को कहा जाता है commonly gamet. These are commonly known as gamet, and they get detached from the parent this protonema, और ये germinate करते हैं to produce next protonema. So after separation of each gamete from the protonema, they can germinate and produce next protonema. So these branch-like structure which divide by longitudinal and transverse division, and these 10 to 30 cell structure are known as gamete. ये detach हो जाते हैं parent this protonema से, and they germinate to form new protonema. and may develops on the stem and leaves due to injury. और ये जो structures हैं gamete, they can also formed on the gametophyte plant body parts like stem और leaves में भी बनते हैं due to some injury. Next comes by bulbils, tubers. So these are some structures which are produced in various plant parts, mainly below the substratum. So these are small resting buds produced on the rhizoids. जो rhizoids होते हैं root like structure उसमें ये बनते हैं inside the substratum, and these are called bulbils or tubers. And these are devoid of chloroplast. इनमें कोई भी chloroplast नहीं होता है because they are subterranean, underground grow करते हैं ये, but capable of developing into a leafy individual or leafy gametophore we can say under the favorable conditions. So ये जो tuber और bulbil structure है, it can give rise to the full-fledged gametophore or gametophyte, which is the plant body of Funaria under favorable conditions. Next comes APOSPORY. Apo means without, spory means spore. So it is the formation of gametophyte without spore formation. So it is the development of gametophyte from sporophyte without formation of spores, and this phenomenon is known as APOSPORY. So any vegetative cell of the sporophyte, कोई भी vegetative cell, that is ये Seta है, this long stalk like structure Seta, and this is capsule, और ये दोनों मिलकर बनाते हैं sporophoric plant body of this Funaria. So any cells of this sporophyte may form green protonemal filaments with which bear lateral buds, और जिसके ऊपर lateral buds grow करते हैं, and these buds later on develops into the leafy gametophores. और ये जो birds इसके ऊपर ग्रो करते हैं ये ग्रो करते हैं leafy gametophore में. So इस तरह से जो gametophyte बनता है, that is without the involvement of spores, and this phenomenon is known as APOSPORY. Next is sexual reproduction in Funaria. So जो फ्यूनेरिया है, इट इज़ अ मोनोशियस जीनस. इसमें एक ही प्लांट में दोनों मेल और फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर्स बनते हैं, बट दे आर बोर्न ऑन द डिफरेंट ब्रांचेस. So the male sex organ is Antheridia and female sex organ is Archegonia, and they are present on the different branches. So in this picture we can see here, this is the gametophyte, this is the antheridial branch, and this is the archegonial branch, and its tip they bear the many Archegonia and Antheridia respectively. So Funaria is autoecious. Autoecious means एक ही प्लांट पे दोनों ही रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर्स बनते हैं बट ऑन डिफरेंट ब्रांचेस, एंड मोनोशियस आल्सो बिकॉज द मेल दैट इज एंथ्रीडियम एंड फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर दैट इज archegonium. Reproductive structure develops on the separate shoots of the same plant. Separate branches पे ग्रो करता है बट प्लांट एक ही है. एंड एंथ्रीडिया आर बोर्न ऑन द मेन शूट ऑफ द प्लांट. एंथ्रीडिया जो मेन शूट है उस पर ग्रो करता है, and Archegonia is develops on the side or lateral shoot, and which grows more vigorously, बहुत fastly grow करता है and becomes longer than the male branch, और male branch से इसकी length ज़्यादा होती है as compared to the male branch. Next comes the male reproductive structure, that is Antheridium. So Antheridia are born on the antheridial branch in cluster, इसमें हम देख सकते हैं, and they are covered by some special leaf-like structure जिनको कहा जाता है perigonial leaves, and this cup-like structure which is formed by these leaves at the tip or apex of branch is known as perigonial cup. So Antheridia are born in clusters, groups में grow करते हैं ये, at the apex of the main axis, जो main shoot है उसके apex पे ही grow करता है in cluster, and these are multicellular. They also contain some multicellular hairs. जो एंथ्रीडिया है उसके साथ कुछ multicellular hairs होते हैं. These are known as paraphysis and are intermingled with the antheridia. So in this photograph we can see here, this is antheridia, और इसके साथ जो ये multicellular hair-like structures हैं, these structures are known as paraphysis. Both antheridia and paraphysis are surrounded by a number of bracket-like leaves. जो ये bracket की तरह leaves हैं बाहर से, ये इसको सराउंड करते हैं टू फॉर्म ए रोजेट कॉल्ड पेरिगोनियम, और इस स्ट्रक्चर को कहा जाता है पेरिगोनियम, एंड दीज लीव्स आर नोन एज पेरिगोनियल लीव्स. द पैराफाइसिस कंटेन क्लोरोप्लास्ट एंड हेल्प्स इन फोटोसिंथेसिस. जो ये पैराफाइसिस हैं, these hair like structures, multicellular hair like structures, they bear chloroplast and they helps in photosynthesis and also protect the young antheridia against desiccation. जो यंग एंथ्रीडिया है उनको ये ड्राइनेस से बचाते हैं एंड दे प्रिवेंट देयर डेसिकेशन आल्सो, सो दे हैव प्रोटेक्टिव रोल. And the paraphysis assist in liberation of entherozoid also. In addition to this protection, it also helps in liberation of entherozoids or male gametes from the entheridia. So these are the function of these paraphysis. Next comes the mature entheridium. So mature entheridium has a multicellular long stalk and red or orange colored club-shaped body. So इसकी जो body है that is club-shaped and has long stalk. The apical cell of the jacket forms thick wall, haline opercular or operculum or cap of the antheridium. जो apical cell हैं antheridia के they form the haline operculum, that is the mouth covering or cap of the antheridium, and numerous androcytes. Androcytes are the cells जो metamorphosis के बाद बनाते हैं spermatozoids, and they are present inside this jacket. As we know, जो bryophytes हैं they have some unique features and one of them is they have a jacketed sex organs. So antheridia में बाहर की जो layer है that form jacket, और jackets के अंदर present होते हैं fertile cells जिनको कहा जाता है androcytes, and they will form the male gametes and they develops into a single biflagellate spermatozoid which is the male gamete. So this is the diagram of antheridia. It is a club-shaped structure having multicellular stalk. मल्टीसेलर स्टॉक होती है एंड बाहर से इसमें एक लेयर जैकेट होती है. दिस इज जैकेटेड एंड इनसाइड दिस जैकेट इट कंटेन्स, सो दिस सिंगल लेयर इज जैकेट एंड इट कंटेन्स न्यूमरस एंड्रोसाइट्स. सो दीज आर एंड्रोसाइट्स, और ये जो एंड्रोसाइट्स हैं दे विल फॉर्म द मेल गैमेट दैट इज एंथ्रीडिया एज दैट इज स्पर्मेटोजॉइड्स. Next comes dehiscence of the antheridium. How this antheridium will dehiscence, show desiccation और वहाँ से कैसे एंथीरोजॉइड्स बाहर निकलेंगे. So dehiscence of the mature antheridium only takes place in the presence of water. So water is important for the liberation of these spermatozoids. And the apical cells, जो कि opercular cells हैं, they absorb water or dew from the rainwater and swells up, और वो swell up करते हैं. And the pressure the secreted ruptures the inner wall of this operculum, उससे उसकी अंदर की wall breakdown हो जाती है and eventually the pore is formed. A pore like structure is formed at the distal end और tip of the antheridia. जो tip में ये जो opercular cells हैं ये water absorb करते हैं and ड्यू टू एब्जॉर्प्शन और स्वेलिंग अप ऑफ दिस सेल्स एक पोर की तरह स्ट्रक्चर यहाँ पे बनता है एंड थ्रू दिस पोर दीज spermatozoids are released and in the distal end of the antheridium. And the androcytes spread out, और जो androcytes हैं spread out होते हैं as a thin film and develops into a biflagellate spermatozoid, और एक biflagellate spermatozoids बनते हैं, that is the male gamete. And through the pore the spermatozoids oozes out. यहाँ से स्पोर के थ्रू जो spermatozoids हैं वो बाहर निकलते हैं, the male gametes, in the form of viscous fluid due to hygroscopic pressure developing within the antheridial cavity. इस antheridial cavity में जो hydrostatic pressure develop होता है उसकी वजह से ये ooze out होते हैं स्पोर से बाहर. Next comes Archegonium, which is the female reproductive structure and it is formed on the female branch. So Archegonia are born in clusters similar to Antheridia at the apex of archegonial branch. जो female branch है उसकी apex में ये clusters में बनते हैं. And mature Archegonium is a flask-shaped structure that we can see here. It consists of these cover cells, then neck, canal cells, and venter, which is the basal portion that contains egg. So the mature Archegonium consists of long stalk. एक long stalk present है. This is the basal portion, which is the stalk, and a basal swollen venter. This is venter, and an elongated neck. So this is neck. The twisted and tubular neck encloses 4 to 10 or more neck canal cells. इसके अंदर जो cells हैं, these cells are known as neck canal cells. ये 4 से लेके 10 हो सकते हैं. And the archegonial jacket is single layer, just similar to that of antheridial jacket. Layer thick and in the neck region में ये single layer thick होता है and but it is double layered in the region of venter, और ventral region में ये जो jacket है it is double cell layer, 2 cells की layer बनी होती है इसमें. एंड द वेंटर कंटेन्स अ वेंट्रल कैनाल सेल एंड एन एग। इसमें जो वेंटर वाला पोर्शन है, इसमें एक वेंटर सेल प्रेजेंट होता है, दिस वेंटर सेल, and the second one is the egg cell. So in this photograph you can see here, this is the stalk, and this swollen portion is venter, and this is neck. This neck contains 4 to 10 neck canal cells. Then it also contains a venter canal cell and a single egg at its base. Next comes fertilization of Archegonium. So during fertilization, venter canal cells as well as neck canal cells, both of these cells gets disintegrated, degenerated, and they form mucilaginous substance. And that mucilaginous substance in this region absorb water and swells up, which break down the cover cells, and it leads to the formation of a open cavity. और जो mucilaginous substance है वो इसके अंदर से बाहर की तरफ को ooze out होता है and comes out of that pore, and that mucilaginous substance have some chemicals in that mucilage. और जो एंथीरोजॉइड्स हैं या spermatozoids हैं, they are attracted toward this mucilaginous drop by chemotactic movement, and many antherozoids comes to this neck. Only one antherozoid is able to fuse with egg to form diploid zygote. So during fertilization, ventral canal cells and neck canal cells of Archegonium disintegrate and forming a mucilaginous substance. तो दोनों ही cells neck canal cells हो गए और ventral canal cells हैं, वो दोनों ही disintegrate हो जाते हैं and they form mucilaginous substance. And this mucilaginous substance absorb water and rain or dew water, then swells up, and as a result of this it creates a pressure, and that pressure breaks the terminal cover cells. और उस प्रेशर क्रिएट होने की वजह से जो टर्मिनल सेल्स हैं, कवर सेल्स हैं यहाँ पे, वो कवर सेल्स डिसइंटीग्रेट हो जाते हैं, एंड नाउ द शुगर कंटेनिंग म्यूसिलेजिनस सब्सटेंस ooze आउट थ्रू द ओपनिंग ऑफ आर्चिगोनियल नेक। और इसके अंदर का जो म्यूसिलेजिनस सब्सटेंस है वो यहाँ से बाहर की तरफ को आता है एंड रिचेज अप टू दिस पोर, and the liberated antherozoids are now attracted chemotactically towards the archegonia। और ये जो antherozoids हैं ये chemotactically इसकी तरफ attract होते हैं, and large number of antherozoids enter the neck, but only one of them is able to fuse with egg nucleus to form the diploid zygote। सिर्फ एक ही antherozoid egg के साथ fuse कर पाएगा, and that results in the fertilization process and forms the diploid zygote, that is the first cell of sporophytic generation. Next comes the sporophyte. The fertilized egg or zygote is the first cell of sporophytic generation, and the zygote swells up, increases in size, divides and forms the embryo and forms a wall around it prior to further division। और इसके बाहर भी एक wall बनती है, and this is the sporophytic part of the Funaria. It consists of Seta, capsule and foot, which is embedded in the gametophyte. Next comes the development of sporophyte. Sporophyte is formed as a result of fertilization. Zygote develops into the sporophyte, which is the diploid part of the Funaria plant body. So the archegonial wall enlarges and form outer covering, which is known as calyptra, which covers the capsule till maturity. So capsule is the structure which contains the spores, और जो आर्चिगोनियल वॉल है वो एनलार्ज होती है, दैट विल फॉर्म कैलिप्ट्रा, और फाइनली ये बनाता है कैप्सूल। अ लॉन्ग सिलेंडर स्पोरोफाइट इज देन डिफरेंशिएटेड, और ये जो कैप्सूल है ये डिफरेंशिएट हो जाता है एट द लेटर स्टेज वेयर द एम्फीथीशियम सराउंड्स द एंडोथीशियम। सो आफ्टर फर्टिलाइजेशन जो जाइगोट है वो डिवाइड करता है टू फॉर्म एम्ब्रियो। एम्ब्रियो के जो बाहर वाले सेल्स हैं दे फॉर्म एम्फीथीशियम, और जो इनर सेल्स हैं दे आर डिफरेंशिएटेड इनटू एंडोथीशियम, और ये एम्फीथीशियम एंड एंडोथीशियम बनाते हैं वेरियस पार्ट्स ऑफ स्पोरोफाइट। So the multi-layered jacket of capsule is formed from amphithecium। जो कैप्सूल की लेयर्स हैं दैट इज मल्टीलेयर जैकेट, वो बनता है एम्फीथीशियम से, जो आउटर लेयर है सेल्स की, एम्ब्रियो की, while the outer layers of endothecium forms the archisporium. Archisporium is the fertile tissue of sporophyte जो कि फ्यूचर के स्पोर्स बनाता है, एंड एक्सियल लेयर प्रोड्यूसेस द कॉलुमेला, और जो सेंटर की अंदर की लेयर है एंडोथीशियम की, दैट विल फॉर्म द कॉल्यूमेला ऑफ स्पोरोफाइट. द एपीबेसल सेल, जो जाइगोट है वो डिवाइड करता है टू सेल्स में, अपर वन इज एपीबेसल, लोअर वन इज हाइपोबेसल. और जो एपीबेसल सेल है दैट गिव राइज टू कैप्सूल एंड अपर पार्ट ऑफ सीटा. दो चीज़ें बनाता है एपीबेसल सेल, अपर सेल दैट इज कैप्सूल एंड अपर पार्ट ऑफ सीटा, वाइल जो लोअर सेल है दैट इज हाइपोबेसल सेल दैट गिव राइज टू द लोअर पार्ट ऑफ सीटा एंड द फुट ऑफ स्पोरोफाइट. सो ये चीज़ें बनती हैं हाइपोबेसल सेल से. Next is structure of mature sporophyte. So this structure is the sporophyte and it consists of this long stalk-like structure जिसको कहा जाता है Seta and the upper fertile portion which is known as capsule. और ये होता है partially dependent on this parent body जो है gametophyte. So the mature sporophyte differentiated into foot, a long seta and a pear-shaped capsule. So तीन parts में divide होता है sporophyte. First one is capsule, then seta and the foot, जिसकी help से ये जो sporophyte है that is attached or anchored to the parent body, that is gametophyte. First part is foot. It is a small dagger-like structure which is multicellular conical structure and embedded in the apex of archegonial branch. सो दिस इज़ द आर्चिगोनियल ब्रांच, और इसके टिप में ये प्रेजेंट होता है, एंड इट हेल्प्स इन anchoring this sporophyte to the parent body. So helps in encourage and absorption of nutrients from the gametophyte. जो ये gametophyte है वहाँ से ये न्यूट्रिशन को एब्जॉर्ब करने में और इसको एंकर करने में हेल्प करता है with the parent body. And it also develops some finger-like outgrowths जो कि सरफेस एरिया को इंक्रीज करती है एब्जॉर्प्शन के लिए. सो दिस इज द स्ट्रक्चर. फुट इसके बेस में प्रेजेंट होता है, देन इट हेल्प्स इन अटैचमेंट ऑफ दिस sporophyte to the parent body. Next comes Seta. So this stalk-like structure जो कैप्सूल को एयर में पुश करता है, so this structure is known as Seta. It carries this capsule into the air. So Seta is a long green color when young but becomes reddish brown at maturity and present between foot and capsule. Capsule और foot के बीच में present होता है. Then the TS of Seta shows single layer epidermis. बाहर की epidermis present होती है. Then comes central conducting strand. Center में conducting strand which is made up of thick walled cells. And this conducting strand is surrounded by this cortex which is made up of comparatively thick wall cell. Cortex भी इसकी thick wall cell से बनी होती है. So this is all about the anatomy of the Seta. And Seta's main function is in conduction of nutrients and water from gametophyte to capsule. So it helps in carrying this food material, that is nutrients and water from this parent body to the capsule. And dry Setae are more or less twisted and hygroscopic. They also helps in spore dispersal. जो जब कंडीशंस ड्राई होती हैं तो ये ट्विस्ट करते हैं एंड दे शो हाइग्रोस्कोपिक मूवमेंट, एंड ड्यू टू देयर हाइग्रोस्कोपिक मूवमेंट दे आल्सो हेल्प्स इन डिस्पर्सल ऑफ स्पोर्स फ्रॉम दिस कैप्सूल. सो दिस पोर्शन इज नोन एज Seta. Next comes capsule. It is the fertile portion and it is a pear-shaped structure, fertile portion of the sporogonium. So this is the photograph of capsule. This is a fertile portion of this sporophyte. Internally it is divided into three distinct parts, that is sterile basal region जिसको कहा जाता है apophysis. This basal portion is known as apophysis. Then comes the central fertile portion, जो center का fertile portion है, this is called Theca, and the apical region which is known as operculum. So this lid like structure जो है ढक्कन की तरह structure है, this cover like structure or cap like structure is known as operculum. So this is the operculum, then this portion is known as apophysis, this basal portion, the central portion. This one, fertile portion, is known as theca, which contains the spore sac. Next comes apophysis. It is the lowermost part of the capsule. जो capsule का lowermost part है उसको apophysis कहते हैं, and it connects this capsule with the seta, और ये capsule को connect करता है seta के साथ. So this is the portion apophysis जो connect करता है seta को capsule के fertile portion के साथ. It also contains loosely arranged chlorophyllous cells. इसमें जो dotted cells हैं, these are chlorophyllous cells and are bounded by thick-walled epidermis, which is interrupted by stomata. Thick-walled epidermis होती है इसमें present, but it is interrupted by some stomatas. And the presence of chlorophyllous tissue in the apophysis makes the sporophyte to carry out photosynthesis. और ये जो chlorenchymatous cells present होते हैं apophysis में, ये हेल्प करते हैं फोटोसिंथेसिस में. सो दैट्स वाई जो स्पोरोफिटिक प्लांट बॉडी है दैट इज पार्शियली डिपेंडेंट ऑन द गैमेटोफाइट बिकॉज इट कैन सिंथेसाइज इट्स ओन फूड विद हेल्प ऑफ फोटोसिंथेसिस. इसलिए ये फुली डिपेंडेंट नहीं होता है पेरेंट प्लांट के ऊपर. इट इज पार्शियली डिपेंडेंट ऑन द पेरेंट प्लांट. Therefore, the sporophyte of Funaria is not fully dependent on the gametophyte for nutrition. Next, the theca. Theca is the fertile zone of capsule, or it is the central zone of capsule situated between the apophysis and operculum. जो operculum है that is lid और cap like structure of capsule, और apophysis जो lower most part था capsule का, उसके बीच का जो fertile portion है that is commonly known as theca. Its outermost layer is epidermis, और जो इसको follow करती है 1 to 2 layered hypodermis which is colorless parenchymatous cell made up of colorless parenchymatous cells, and the inner 2-3 layers of parenchymatous cells are chlorophyllous. इसके अंदर की जो 2-3 cell thick layers हैं they are chlorenchymatous, means they have chloroplast and they helps in photosynthesis because they constitute the photosynthetic tissue of capsule. So this central portion is known as theca. It consists of outermost epidermis followed by 1 to 2 layer of hypodermis, and below this layer there are again 2-3 layers of parenchymatous cells which contain chloroplast and they helps in photosynthesis. Next, beneath the chlorenchymatous layer, this photosynthetic layer, there is a big air spaces traversed by several compartments जिनको कहा जाता है trabeculae, and these are made up of filament of 3 to 4 green cells. और ये trabeculae बने होते हैं 3 से 4 green cells के. Then the central portion is solid cylinder. जो theca का central portion है capsule का, that is parenchymatous cell, that is made up of parenchymatous cells, और इसको कहा जाता है columella. It forms a central cylinder like structure जो कि parenchymatous cell से बना होता है. And the columella serves the purpose of conduction of water and nutrients to the growing sporophyte. ये conduction करता है water और nutrients की to the growing sporophyte, and it is narrow at the base. जो columella होता है it is narrow at the base and it's broader at its tip, और इसके टिप में ये broader होता है. Then spore sac occur just outside the columella. Columella के बाहर present होते हैं spore sac जिनके अंदर spores होते हैं. Then the inner wall of spore sac is single layered. जो spore sac है जिसके अंदर spore present होते हैं उसकी अंदर की जो layer है cell wall है that is single layered, and it is commonly known as inner spore sac. इसको कहता है inner spore sac, while the outer layers of spore sac are 3 to 4 layer thick. ये 3 to 4 cell thick होती हैं and is known as outer spore sac, और इसको कहता है outer spore sac. Spore sac contains numerous spores, spore mother cells, SMC भी इनको कहा जाता है in abbreviated form, which are diploid. ये spore mother cell diploid होते हैं and they undergo meiosis, and after meiosis they will form 4 haploid spores which are the first cell of gametophoric generation. So with the help of this diagram we'll understand this. So beneath this chlorophyllous layer there are present large air spaces. जो ये air cavities है दोनों तरफ present है. These are the air chambers, और ये जो एयर चैम्बर्स होते हैं दे आर सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम वन अनदर बाय दिस सिंगल सेल थिक कंपार्टमेंट जिनको कहा जाता है ट्रैबेक्यूले, विच आर नोन एज ट्रैबेक्यूले. एंड this central portion of this cylinder is this central portion is occupied by parenchymatous cell और इसको कहा जाता है columella. This structure is known as columella और इसका जो function है it helps in conduction of water and nutrients. It helps in conduction of water and nutrients and it provide that material to the young growing sporophyte. Then it is narrower at the base. Base में ये columella narrow होता है and it is broader at its tip. Tip में it is broader as compared to the basal portion. Then this columella, outside this columella there is presence of this spore sac. जो ये structures हैं these are spore sac. और ये जो spore sacs होते हैं इनकी inner जो wall है that is made up of single cell thick layer and it is known as inner spore sac. और जो outer layers हैं spore sac की they are 3 to 4 cell thick. ये 3 से 4 cell thick होती हैं and these are commonly known as outer spore sac wall. Inside this spore sac it contains numerous spore mother cells और ये जो spore mother cells होते हैं they undergo meiosis and form haploid spores. Next comes the upper region of this sporophyte. जो upper region है sporophyte का it is made up of two parts. One is operculum and other is peristome teeth. So this is the photograph of capsule. इसका जो अपर ये कैप की तरह पोर्शन है इसको कहा जाता है operculum and these horn like structures are known as peristome. Peristome teeth कहा जाता है इन्हें. जो upper portion है it is made up of these two structures. It consists of operculum and peristome teeth and it is differentiated from theca by a ring of thin walled cells जिनको कहा जाता है annulus. जो थीका है उससे ये डिफ्रेंशिएट होते हैं बाय लेयर ऑफ थिन वॉल्ड सेल जिसको कि एन्यूलस कहा जाता है एंड इट हेल्प्स इन डेहिसेंस ऑफ कैप्सूल. और ये जो थिन वॉल्ड सेल की लेयर है ये हेल्प करती है इसके डेहिसेंस को, ओपनिंग ऑफ दिस कैप्सूल. नेक्स्ट कम्स ऑपरिकुलम ऑर्लेट. इट इज़ अ कॉनिकल कैप लाइक पोर्शन ऑफ कैप्सूल. जैसा कि हम इस फोटोग्राफ में देख सकते हैं इट इज़ अ कैप लाइक पोर्शन ऑफ दिस कैप्सूल. It is 4 to 5 layer thick. Out of these 4 to 5 layer, 2-3 layered cells, radially elongated cells forms rim. जो 2-3 layered radially elongated cells हैं they form rim. Rim means edge, which is the upper end of theca, जो कि theca का upper portion है, this portion, this one, and it connects the epidermis to the peristome of capsule. और ये connect करता है जो epidermis है with these horn-like structure which are capsules. Next comes peristome. So these horn-like structure, this is the picture taken from SEM, surface electron microscopy, and it consists of these peristome teeth which are arranged in two rows. एक outer row है और एक अंदर की row है. इसमें 16 जो पेरिस्टोम टिथ होते हैं दे आर इन आउटर रो और 16 ही इसके अंदर वाली रो में होते हैं. सो फ्यूनेरिया हैज़ टोटल 32 पेरिस्टोम टिथ. इसमें जो बाहर वाले पेरिस्टोम टिथ होते हैं दे आर हाइग्रोस्कोपिक और इसमें बैंड की तरह थिकनिंग भी हम देख सकते हैं. एंड दे आर हाइग्रोस्कोपिक मीन्स ये वाटर की प्रेजेंस और एब्सेंस में मूवमेंट शो करते हैं, वाइल द इनर पेरिस्टोम टिथ आर नॉन हाइग्रोस्कोपिक. इनमें कोई भी इफेक्ट नहीं पड़ता है वाटर की प्रेजेंस और एब्सेंस का. And their main function is in spore dispersal. So this is the fringe of conical teeth around mouth of the capsule beneath the operculum. Operculum के नीचे जो टिथ की तरह स्ट्रक्चर प्रेजेंट होते हैं these structures are known as peristome and they are arranged in two rims of 16 teeth each. इसमें two rims present होती हैं, two layers हैं टिथ की और they are made up of 16 teeth each. And there are total 32 peristome teeth in Funaria. And each tooth is a horn-like structure that we can see in this photograph and it has tapering end. इसका जो end होता है that is tapering. And teeth of outer rim are thicker, red, large sized and hygroscopic. जो बाहर की रिम के peristome teeth हैं, they are thicker, red, large, hygroscopic. And inner rims, peristome teeth are small, colorless and non-hygroscopic. और इनका जो मेन फंक्शन है, that is in the opening and opening of the capsule and helps in gradual spore dispersal in Funaria. Funaria में ये spore dispersal में important role play करते हैं. So this is the capsules portion which shows the peristome teeth, arrangement of the peristome teeth. और इसमें दो layers में peristome teeth present होते हैं, 16 in outer row and 16 in inner row. So this is the photograph which shows enlarged peristome teeth, which are horn-like structures. Next comes dehiscence of capsule. So mainly जो dehiscence है capsule की, it occurs due to shrinkage of this columella and outer layers of capsule wall. जो capsule के cells हैं outer layer के, वो shrink होते हैं और columella के cells shrink होते हैं, जिसकी वजह से ये capsule open होता है. And columella and outer layers of capsule shrink due to loss of water. That results in opening of this capsule. Then hygroscopic movement of peristome teeth throws away the operculum. जो hygroscopic movement है इन teeth की, इनकी वजह से जो operculum और lid है वो बाहर निकल जाती है. And the movement also helps in spore dispersal. ये जो hygroscopic movement है, that also helps in spore dispersal. So in this photograph we can see these are the various, there are numerous spores which are dispersed by these peristome teeth. The dry conditions. In dry conditions, the outer peristome loses water and moves outward with jerk. जब conditions dry होती हैं तो ये जो peristome teeth हैं ये बाहर की तरफ को move करते हैं with jerk और spores को साथ में disperse करते हैं. This results in spore dispersal. And Seta also exhibit hygroscopic movement, ये हमने already discuss किया है previous slide में, and swings the capsule in wet conditions. जब सीटा भी हाइग्रोस्कोपिक मूवमेंट शो करता है, जब वेट कंडीशंस होती है तो ये स्विंग करता है कैप्सूल को इन एयर. दैट आल्सो हेल्प्स इन स्पोर डिस्पर्सल एंड द स्पोर्स आर कैरीड आउट अवे टू डिस्टेंस और फार अवे प्लेसेस बाय विंड. सो जो एयर है वो कैरी करती है इन स्पोर्स को एक जगह से दूसरी जगह पे. फोटोग्राफ विच शोज दिस पेरिस्टोम टिथ. जब कंडीशंस वेट होती है तो ये पेरिस्टोम टिथ क्लोज रहते हैं और कैप्सूल से स्पोर्स बाहर नहीं आते हैं. व्हेन द कंडीशंस आर ड्राई, जो आउटर पेरिस्टोम टिथ हैं वो बाहर की तरफ को मूव करते हैं विद जर्क. दैट इज़ रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द स्पोर डिस्पर्सल, और स्पोर भी बाहर की तरफ डिस्पर्स होते हैं. और ये जो सीटा है that also shows hygroscopic movement. So these two structures, Theta and this peristome teeth, they are responsible for the spore dispersal. Next is structure and germination of spore. So जो ये spore हुआ है, and this is unicellular structure and it is thick walled structure. इसकी जो outermost layer है, they are differentiated to two layers. जो बाहर की layer है, that is exosporium, और जो अंदर की layer है, that is endosporium. When the conditions are favorable, और ये जब spore suitable substratum के ऊपर गिरते हैं, it absorb water और swell करता है. and जो इसका endosporium है, that comes out in the form of germ tube. और ये जो germ tube है, that grows into thread like filamentous structure, जिसको कहा जाता है primary protonema. So this spore is small, colored, unicellular, bilayered structure. आउटर लेयर को कहा जाता है एक्सोस्पोरियम, और जो इनर लेयर है दैट इज स्मूथ, दैट इज नोन एज एंडोस्पोरियम. और ये जर्मिनेट करता है अंडर फेवरेबल कंडीशंस आफ्टर इट हैज़ बीन शेड फ्रॉम कैप्सूल. जब कंडीशंस फेवरेबल होती हैं तभी ये जर्मिनेट करता है. एंड इट रिमेन्स वायबल फॉर 2 years. इट रिमेन्स फंक्शनल फॉर 2 years. नेक्स्ट इज ऑन जर्मिनेशन इट विल गिव राइज टू द मल्टीसेलुलर फिलामेंट, जिसको कहा जाता है प्रोटोनेमा और प्राइमरी प्रोटोनेमा. And it contains two types of branches. ये हम already discuss कर चुके हैं. One are chromonemal branches and other are rhizoidal branches. जो substratum के ऊपर run करती है branches, जिनको कहा जाता है chlorenemal branches. They are green in color. And those branches which penetrate into the substratum, these are known as rhizoidal branches. They form the rhizoid-like structures. So chloronema, which are the photosynthetic branches, they develop into the colonema, means stem-like axis, to form upright gametophyte. और ये बनाता है बाद में full mature gametophyte. And the primary protonema is ephemeral, that we have already discussed. So it is short-lived structure. It is replaced by the gametophyte. So this is the photograph which shows this spore germination. The next, this primary protonema gets replaced by this gametophytic structure. Next comes alternation of generation. जो Funaria है, it shows two different types of plant bodies, that is sporophytic or gametophytic plant bodies, which are different from one another morphologically as well as cytologically. So Funaria show heteromorphic or heterologous type of alternation of generation because it shows morphologically and cytologically different gametophytic and sporophytic plants. So in this photograph, again, this shows how this spore germinates to form germ tube, then it forms the primary protonema, and this protonema grows, its lateral bud grows into the gametophyte, and it is soon replaced by this full-fledged gametophyte, which is haploid, and it bears the male and female reproductive structure. Female reproductive structure is Archegonia, and male reproductive structures are Antheridia. They will produce gametes, they will fuse to form this diploid structure, which is Sporophyte, and again after meiosis it will form the spores. They are haploid and they again germinate to form this gametophyte. So this is all about the life cycle of. Again, this is the flowchart which shows life cycle of Funaria. Funaria reproduces by vegetative reproduction as well as sexual reproduction. So we have discussed all the structures. With vegetative reproduction occurs with the help of bulbil tubers on rhizoids, then secondary protonema, and primary protonema or secondary protonema. Then sexual reproduction occurs by the fusion of male and female gametes, and they are produced on special structure which are known as Archegonium, which is the female reproductive structure, then Antheridium, which is the male reproductive structure. These both structures are produced on two branches of same plant. This Archegonium will produce oosphere, that is the egg, and Antheridium will produce the spermatozoid or antherozoid, which is the male gamete. They will fuse to form diploid structure, which is zygote, and this is the first cell of sporophytic generation. So जो zygote है, ये पहला सेल है sporophytic और diploid generation का. It will grow into the sporogonium, which is diploid, और sporogonium के अंदर बनते हैं spore mother cells, which are diploid. These spore mother cells will undergo meiosis. Meiosis के result से बनाते हैं meiospores, which are haploid, और ये है first cell of gametophytic generation. These meiospores or spore will germinate to form primary protonema. Then they will form birds, and these birds grow into the full-fledged gametophytic plant body of Funaria. So this is all about the graphic life cycle of Funaria. So this was all about this discussion. If you have any questions, queries, and any suggestions, you can give it in comment section. Thank you. Have a great day.